to the Future of Work webinar series 2020. My name is Faustino John Lim, and today's webinar is on the future of work is transforming, how firms and individuals can redefine themselves to thrive beyond COVID, with our speaker, Nishith Jain, who is joining us from Singapore. So if you are joining us for the first time, our center is an organization based out of Boston, US and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, operating in several cities across Asia. We are founded at Harvard University among fellows and alumni, and we are focused on helping leaders in Asia initiate change and manage progress in their organizations and communities. This webinar is one of a series of webinars we're doing on our new book, The Future of Work, How to Prepare for It, and which I'll talk a bit more about later. So we would like to welcome everyone. We have over 100 registrants from over 10 countries and across different industries. And just to joining us from Singapore, Nishith Jain is Senior Director of ServiceNow, a company recognized by Forbes as the world's most innovative. He is a former Bain management consultant, author of The Future of Work is Transforming, Are You? From the book, The Future of Work, How to Prepare for It. And he holds his MBA from the Indian Institute of Management. So how are you doing, Nishith?
All good. Well, thanks for having me in here, John. Really a pleasure speaking to the participants today.
How is everything going in Singapore these days?
Well, we can't complain. Things are improving. I'm not sure if you can hear the construction noise in my background, but it means like life is slowly coming back to normal in Singapore.
Okay, that's great to hear. I didn't notice anything in the back, so I guess that's good. But you're still working from home, I guess, right?
Yes, through the end of this year, working from home, trying to be as productive as we can.
Okay. Well, we're so glad to have you. And that brings us to our first question, which is, what have been the most important future of work trends, and how have they been changing because of COVID? So Nishith, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John, and very interesting survey results coming off. So let me answer your question in two parts. First, what the future of work trends are, and then how is COVID accelerating those trends? So starting off with the future of work trends in itself. So we must look, if you can go to the next slide, please. So we must look at these trends impacting three actors. One is the firms, the second is the jobs, and the third are the people in itself. Now, if we only look at the firms, the reality is that only 1 in 10 companies have remained in the Fortune 500 list since 1955. The forces of creative destruction, right, will mean that half of today's S&P firms will no longer be a part of the index in the next decade. Another report states that jobs of the future will be materially different from the jobs of today, to the extent that 85% of the jobs of 2030 have not even been invented yet. And with the accelerated adoption of artificial intelligence, machine learning, it is estimated that about half of these activities that people are currently paid to do today will be done by machines by 2055, all within our lifespan, right? So now let me come to how are these trends being accelerated. So next slide, please. So what is COVID doing is accelerating some of these trends, some to our likes, some to our dislikes. So first, and perhaps the most visible impact on the bottom left on the firms, is on the businesses and the government in itself, right? So COVID has threatened to wipe out entire industries like travel, retail, oil and energy. On the other hand, industries like technology, which I'm fortunate to be a part of, and even banking and like wealth management, they have seen strong tailwinds enabled by digital transformation initiative. The primary reason for this underperformance is the inability to adapt to new business models, focus on collaborative value creation. Instead, what companies have been doing, historically, is they have tried to capture the value using an asset heavy model. And I will come to explaining this more in my next session as well, in my next kind of answer as well. Second is the impact of the COVID on jobs and the workforce. So what is surprising is rather counterintuitive, but most studies have pointed out that remote working has actually led to a boost in productivity. The bigger question is, however, how long can this boost last? So essentially what we are doing is we are tapping into the chips in the bank that we have accumulated over the years in our jobs by building trust, working with our coworkers, having fun together. But all of that social capital is eroding day by day. So while remote working has clearly resulted in some savings on time on commuting, but the fallout of a distributed workforce will be around the reduction in true collaboration and breakthrough innovation, which many researchers have pointed out requires a higher level of proximity than remote working. By the way, a little known story about the algorithm for Google's AdWords is Google's AdWord. It's a brilliant automated advertising service. We see all the results coming in. That originated from a casual game of pool, which five employees from different departments began discussing the limitations of an earlier algorithm for AdWords, and then decided to take on the challenge of improving it over a weekend. And the rest, they say, is history. And by the way, we're talking about Google. Even the Google cafeteria has assigned a product manager to bring out the best of the interaction among employees, right? Social interaction is really, really important, and that's going to be impacted. The third is the impact on the people, which is us, right? And let us take a moment to reflect. But for the first time in history, three of our major social pillars, work, family, and school, they are all operating in one physical place, our homes. And as a result, the work-life balance is becoming more elusive and morphing instead into what I'm saying as a work-life blend, in which boundaries between work and life have become very blurred. Even in the best of times, by the way, work, family, school, these are all greedy institutions. What I mean by that is each of these expects its participants to be the ideal individuals. Like, for example, for us, like workplaces, especially in Asia, encourage workers to strive for perfection, total devotion to work. Likewise, families tend to expect perfect parenting skills. And now that our children are learning from home, parents are also expected to become the ideal teachers. So this is taking a toll on us. And clearly, given these forces that are shaping organizations and jobs, it is critical that we as decision makers, as policy makers, even as individuals, we need to transform to stay relevant in this new future of work. Back to you, John.
So definitely we have to transform. So what can leaders do to prepare their organization and thrive in the future of work? And before you answer this, Nishith, I'd just like to remind our participants, if you have any questions at any time of the session, we will have time at the end, but you can please submit them at the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, okay? So Nishith, what can leaders do to prepare for their organization and thrive?
Yeah, sure. Well, for us to be able to prepare ourselves to thrive in this new future of work, I think first we need to know what does the future hold for us, right? And I would say a simple way is to ask ourselves the right set of questions that will throw light upon what this future may look like. No one knows the future, but we will think about what it could look like, right? And I have stated 5 questions, and I've elaborated on this on my book as well. The first question is why. Basically, why do people work? What motivates us to go beyond the regular call of duty? The second question is what? What should companies focus on to bring out the best from their workers? The third question is where will work happen? And this refers to the business model that will drive growth and innovation in companies. The fourth is who will do the work? And the fifth is how. How can we prepare ourselves for this future? So if you go on to the next slide, please, I'll elaborate on these trends and these answers one by one. So please bear with me, but let me go from 1 through to 5. The first theme is around, creating the shared purpose in the organization, right? So studies have clearly proven that people are not inspired by money or title, but by the company's purpose. And purpose is the sense that we are a part of something bigger, right, than ourselves, that we are needed, that we have something better ahead to work for. But within an organizational context, right, the company's purpose is actually what people call it's a bold articulation of its reason for being in business. But let me share some numbers. So according to a study published in the Harvard Business Review, 81% respondents and executives agreed that purpose-driven firms deliver higher quality products and services. It also, by the way, purpose-driven organization, they also act as a beacon to attract the right talent to the organization. And it is also one of the critical steps towards customer loyalty. So by identifying a customer purpose, is the first step, but it is not the end of the line. Once the purpose has been defined, it has to be clearly communicated to everyone within the organization. And then it is for the leaders to make a substantiative difference in the organizations by incorporating purpose to their management approach, which simply means purpose should influence their thought process, their decisions, their actions, right? So that is the first theme around purpose-driven organizations. The second theme is around fostering era of experiences. And what does it mean? What does era of experiences mean? So simply put, let me take you through a journey over the past century of companies, right? And we have seen companies move from utility-based models, productivity-based working that were very output-driven, to then the next kind of era started on the customer first thinking in the late part of the previous century, by the way. However, the war of talent led to the stark realization that employees are just as important as customers. And usually they actually have a deeper and more enduring relationship with their organizations than customers do. This is obvious. And this epiphany resulted in the age of engagement. And companies started to offer more perks, rewards. They have social events in the workplace. They paid more attention to the employees' well-being. But surprisingly, what we have seen over the past few years is these engagement scores have started to level off. It's no longer a differentiator, but research is highlighting that the most critical factor for employees is the work itself. Employees care about how their work can bring out their best talents, how it can shape their careers, and how it can derive meaning from what they do, and how it basically serves a larger purpose, right? That was the first thing. So the future of work will thus revolve around experiences of the work in itself. And COVID is really bringing this point to home. Like creating better experiences at work will mean transcending these artificial boundaries to working from anywhere, and in making work flow very cross-functionally in a fictionless manner. So that's the second theme that we are talking about, experiences. What is the work that we are spending most of our lives on? The third theme is the importance of what I say is the platform business models. Now, over the last decade, platform businesses have penetrated a variety of industries. Platform is basically something that enables value creating interactions by matching producers to the users using a technology driven approach. And the key part is it doesn't need to control all the elements in the value chain. So let me take some examples. And this is very striking. Uber, the world's largest taxi company, it owns no vehicles. Facebook, as you know, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. We create the content. We are the content. Alibaba, the world's most valuable retailer, has no inventory at all. And then Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. Even closer to home in Asia, examples that we have all known, Lazada or even Shopee. So I'll just take the example of Lazada, one of the largest e-commerce platforms in Southeast Asia, now owned by the Alibaba Group, directly connects third-party merchants to consumers across Asia while providing digital marketing, payment transactions, services related to international logistics, all of that. Right? Similarly, Grab and Gojek are fighting out to become the one-stop super app in Southeast Asia. Even the badly hit travel sector, by the way, is trying out this innovative stuff in Asia because of the orientation or reorientation towards a platform business model. Singapore Airlines, by the way, is offering flights to nowhere. Right? I'm not sure if people have known about that. Or duty-free shopping has moved online. Just recently purchased a bulk of things that I used to purchase when I used to be traveling all the time. And then Garuda and Thai Airlines, very interestingly, are delivering their in-flight meals to home. People are buying it actually.
Wow,
So
I would never do that. Why do
people
people
said
do
that they
that?
were missing. This was in last week's Economist, by the
I
way,
see.
that they were missing those experiences and that food. Some of them are really good value for money.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. The fourth is theme is around the the necessity to embrace workers from the gig economy, which also includes, by the way, crowd workers. An emergent research company predicts that the number of people with on-demand jobs will roughly grow 2.5 times over the next 5 years. And COVID is accelerating actually the trends towards some of this shift. So organizations, they need to redesign the jobs of tomorrow in order to also reflect the positive benefits of independent gig work, right? We know it has some great positives for people who want to have a flexible work arrangement. So structural elements like hierarchies, rigid methods of control, or putting the company first. Companies need to give way to flexibility, to autonomy to its workers, and the emphasis on this work-life harmony, right? For these benefits are all humans, by the way, whether it is employees, gig workers, we all aspire to. And then the last element which came across as the most important thing in the survey at the start of this session is around the organizational growth mindset, right? So first, what is organizational growth mindset? It simply means that a belief that potential is not predetermined or innate, that you're born with it, but rather something that you can nurture over time. A person with a growth mindset, therefore, very, very lucidly put, they concentrate on improving rather than on proving, uh, on developing instead of demonstrating, and on learning instead of knowing. Right? So the future of work depends on entire companies adopting this growth mindset. A study by Carol Dweck, who has done quite a bit of research around growth mindset, uh, she has shown that a growth mindset enables organizations to commit to empowerment, collaboration, and it can even further innovation. One of the prime examples is actually Microsoft under Satya Nadella when he took over as the CEO, how he transformed the culture of the firm using these growth mindset principles. And I'm happy to talk more if people are interested on, how do you create growth mindsets within organizations. But let me pause here and then, maybe hand it back to you, John.
Yeah, definitely, Nishith. This is a excellent model, and I actually have a lot of questions, but on this, and would love to discuss this a bit later. But on the third question, thinking about our own careers, us as individuals, what can we do to navigate the future? What are your thoughts on that? Go ahead, Nishith.
Sure. So maybe if we can move to my next slide. Uh, see this picture, right? So this is an old joke. People might have heard about it. Joke doesn't come from me. It's not original. But it declares that the ideal cockpit crew of the future will be a pilot and a dog, right? The pilot will feed the dog, and the dog will bite the pilot in case he tries to touch anything in the cockpit. Jokes apart, and in all seriousness, I think the primary role of the pilot should be looking out of the window while the plane's computer makes most of the decisions. So computers can fly planes and will fly planes, by the way, in future, but we still need humans to scan the skyline for threats that analytical models will never be able to predict. In other words, I think the future of work will involve us, humans, and machine, which is the algorithms, working together, right? Machines basically will augment and complement the human workforce, enabling us to solve more challenging problems and achieve higher levels of intelligence and achievement. So navigating the future with higher confidence, as humans, we need to employ two key strategies. So if you move my next slide, I will touch upon the first key strategy. The first is, will be our openness to embark upon non-linear career paths. So I'll give an example, a study by CEO Genome Project, which studied literally thousands of CEOs in a 10-year study, found that CEO sprinters are basically, people who have landed the CEO position much faster than an average CEO has. So these CEO sprinters did not always possess the select mix of inborn traits like leadership qualities or even a perfect pedigree to boast of. Instead, these sprinters accelerated to the top by making bold career moves. But what was even more interesting then these moves rarely progressed in a straight line. Many of times, these went sideways or even backwards, but each move ultimately helped them to catapult their career to a higher level. The varied positions that they took, that is what helped them to build new and valuable behaviors that facilitated their success on a bigger stage later on. So this is something that we as individuals need to keep in mind. Don't think about your life as a ladder. Sheryl Sandberg had a very interesting analogy. Think about it as a jungle gym, right? You need to be building new muscles, trying out new tools, equipment to be able to get that muscle working for you in the longer run. So that's my first kind of strategy. If you can move to the next slide, please. I'll also talk about the next strategy, which is around developing future-proof and human-centric skills and traits. So, by the way, key, I think theme out here is that humans and machines will coexist, but we need to bring out what we are best doing in. And many aspects of the work in future, specifically those dependent on the 5 I's, as I call it, which is imagination, ideation, initiative, insight, and emotional intelligence, not the normal intelligence, emotional intelligence. These are the 5 I's. These will still require high levels of human involvement and continue to give us the edge over an artificial general intelligence that machines provide. So focusing on what helps us build these 5 I's is what will be critical for us to thrive actually as individuals and as a species. And I've detailed out those learnings into 3 crucial future-proof skills that we should build. First is creativity. You see, creativity basically is the use of original ideas and imagination to build new concepts, inventions, and solutions. And it can even be incremental, right? You build upon something which is already existing. It does not necessarily need to be fresh and new. The second thing, which is on the right-hand side, is critical thinking, right? Critical thinking involves objectively analyzing and evaluating an issue by using our powers of observation, reasoning, communication. This is what we can do, right? As humans, better than a linear intelligence coming from machines. And the third, which is very, very important for all of us as individuals growing to become managers, growing to become leaders of tomorrow, is resilient leadership. Is the skill of helping yourself and others to recover from crisis quickly and bounce back to an even higher level than before. In fact, I should say bounce forward, not bounce back. So these are the things I think, in times we are living in, these things become very, very important to start off as soon as possible, building on these skill sets for the future. So back to you, John.
Yeah, definitely. These are super important lessons for individuals. Now, we've come to the open forum. And so if you do have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A box and then upvote any questions which you find interesting. And I'm actually going to have the first question because we're still waiting for some to submit their questions. I'm so intrigued by your 5-part model. And if it's okay, can we go back to Nishith's slide where it's about 4 or 5 slides back. I'm just curious if you can go back and yeah, right here. I'm just curious, would it be possible for you to use your own, I mean, this is basically a plug for your own company, but could you use your own company and use as a case on how this works at your own organization? I'm always been fascinated by the work that you do, Nishith, and I just love to hear like how that works, what this looks like in your own organization.
Yeah, sure. No, I hope my CEO is also listening when I'm plugging my company. but jokes apart, I am really blessed to be at ServiceNow, where I not just learned a lot of these concepts, but I'm putting a lot of these things into practice together with our leadership team. So things like shared purpose. So 3 years back, we embarked upon a purpose tour. We went about talking to 5,000 of our customers, understanding how is the purpose relevant. So our purpose is basically to make the world of work better for people. So the first is world of work, right? We are a technology company. We are impacting the way people are doing. We are automating digitizing stuff. So it has both positive as well as not so positive benefits or impact for some of the people. So how we are impacting the future of the work became very important. And this is how I started to think deeply about this subject and ultimately wrote this chapter. The second thing is, technology in the service of people. We make the world work better for people. It is for common people. It is not for the geeks and the nerds only. But how do you impact people by having technology in the service of people? Not just cool products, but how you can make a real impact. And this is what started to kind of, see how we are spending a lot of time at work, which is not meaningful, which is not purposeful, which doesn't excite us, and how we can kind of, automate that work to free ourselves up for really the value adding, the creative and the innovative stuff that we as humans should be doing in future. So that definitely comes, directly from, how and what we are doing. Second, I think, in terms of being a platform company, again, we have, we are a platform company where we have developed our own applications, but our partners, even customers, can develop and put on our platform certain apps that users can use. So we have started to kind of realize the power of platform is not within the platform, but who are the players who are on that platform. So it is above the platform. And that is what I think what we're trying to kind of, make everyone feel confident about is this is a low code, no code platform, right? A lot of things that we are doing right now doesn't require like deep text based coding. It is easy, user friendly and intuitive enough for people to kind of, solve their own kind of, problems. By the way, our customers came back and developed tracing apps, safe return to workplace, contract tracing, and all of that is something that US government, one of the state governments did, and then they put it up for free on our platform to use by everyone. So these are examples, but also customers. If I think about it, I gave an example in my book about Center for District Health Board in New Zealand, where they are empowering their own employees to be able to take this technology driven approach to have a better experiences. It's basically a caregiving organization. So it works with healthcare, with patients, and basically they think that, if we are able to empower and give a better experience to our employees, they will provide better care to the patients and so on. So those are some of the examples that I can, talk about from my experience. I think you're on mute, John.
So that's awesome, Nishith. Thank you so much. We actually have a couple questions now. So could we have David Marchesso on the line? So David, just please introduce yourself, a bit about your background, and then just share your question to Nishith. Go ahead, David.
Hello guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. First of all, thank you for organizing this. I was just thinking, when we talk about the future of work, and sorry, let me introduce myself. I actually work for SAP, and I'm responsible for industries. What I see is that when we talk about the future of work with customers, we quickly have to go into a business discussion around how their business processes will evolve. Future of work is not an HR topic. It's not only an HR topic. I agree with all the trends that were described before and the impact on the management topic in general. But very quickly, we need to look at the different roles and responsibilities in the different industry-specific business processes to see how COVID and digitization are actually impacting these roles. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think good question, David. First of all, for people, our CEO came from SAP, so it's been a pleasure kind of, working with Bill. And I think you're right. When we talk about, what's happening in today, we go back to customers, and customers are embarking upon this journey of digital transformation. A very cliched kind of, term, but what essentially is happening is people who are doing businesses offline on paper, are all moving online, and they are really thinking about how do I make use of technology, not just software, but broader technology, to be able to change the way we work, to be able to change, what we can offer to our customers. And customers, are very, very driven by the value that we can actually offer, not just the value that is on paper, but also the value that they can realize. So what is happening is, there are business softwares that are there for either, the enterprise resource planning or the human capital, or even the IT set of processes that are there. People want to make sure that these processes are something that are world class, which means that they are best in line with what is required today, not what they brought 5 years back. And hence, I think one of the key changes that is happening is a lot of move towards cloud, right? On cloud, the brilliant part is that you can update your technology that you offer to your customers almost instantaneously, and the customers can kind of consume that almost immediately. The second part, and you would relate to it much better, probably an expert, David, on that, is the industry verticals, right? So if you think about industries, what it means simply is that to customer, don't talk your language of your technology. Talk about the solutions, what the business problem that you are trying to solve or you can help me solve. And that is more important. If you think about, why we are doing work, ultimately, we are solving problems of our customers or enabling them to do things better than what they have been doing before. And that's what the true differentiator is. However you do it, you use a functional software, you do, an HR kind of, application, or you even provide consulting to your customers, but you're trying to kind of, be themselves a better self than what they were before. So I think all of these things and trends that we are talking about is very, very crucial, especially, if you think about big organizations, there is a fundamental belief that what worked for them 10 years before wouldn't work. I think startups are a little bit more agile and nimble, and they are taking it on the fly, but even for big customers, they have to kind of, deploy some of these changes in terms of business process and even mindset going forward.
Mm-hmm. David, we'll come back to you if your question still holds. Your second question, I see one. But right now, let's put Sasha White on the line. Sasha, please introduce yourself and share your question to Nishith. Go ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. My name's Sasha. I know Nishith pretty well through the ServiceNow ecosystem. I run a business called Workflow, which focuses on employee experience design. So of course, my question is around fostering the era of experience. Nishith, it would just be really good to know from you, how do you think companies should be approaching the remote work experience? Kind of what are the biggest differences there? And also, from an industry perspective, how do organizations and HR leaders and, workforce leaders more generally manage that where there is a blended workforce? So employees that will continue to work remotely, but also, people that work in customer facing roles or in, production or oil and gas, how do you manage that blended experience?
Perfect. Sasha, thanks for joining in this this webinar, and hopefully you're doing well in your new company, Workflow. So would love to know more about that as well. But coming specifically to the question, see, I think we are still grappling with some of these questions, and I would not state that I'm an expert to answer all of these, but I'll provide my 2 cents, my thoughts around how we can do things better. And it all boils down to, I think, 3 things. One is starting off, it is not going to be a question of we will all work remotely or we will all work in office in a physical location. I think the answer will be somewhere in between, where a bunch of roles might be permanently remote, but in reality, majority of the roles will be a hybrid model where we will kind of come face to face, and in some other parts of the week we will work remotely. And coming face to face, I think what companies will have to redesign is we will have this burst of activities working together. So proximity is important, is the key, I think, message that I want to pass out. Second, the realities today is basically stating us to make sure that we have the proximity, but we need to define how we can all get together. And third is also there is something which has to be with the flow, where we are stating that, okay, we have to think about ways and means of making our work very innovative, impromptu, instantaneous, rather than very, very planned. So these are, I think, the challenges that we will all be facing in. So the three, I think, aspects that I was talking about, one is definitely the tools. We have to kind of, use some of the tools like what we're using right now in here, Zoom. There have been a bunch of collaboration tools online, whiteboarding tools online, which people have started to kind of, use if you are in a remote kind of, arrangement. There is also, I think, one key element that we started to use is even as simple as the tools that you have been using before, like Office 365. If you start using OneDrive and people work together towards an output, you can make changes on the same set of materials, collaterals, all at the same time. It does not have to be very, very linear. So I think that is one change that will be happening. The second is, and this is very, very important, right? We have to make transformation which makes work simpler and more intuitive. So going back, we have to redesign processes. So in today's organization, what happens is the functional specialization, it has led to creation of silos. And creating better experiences at work will mean transcending these artificial boundaries. So I talked about work going cross-functional, right? We can't act in silos. We have business problems to solve, and that has to be done in a frictionless manner across the organization. So that's, I think, the second part where we have to kind of, think about within the organization, how do we kind of, transcend some of these boundaries. And third is, I think, at the individual level, if we think about, what we need to be doing, we have to think about learning some of these new mindsets, some of these new ways of working in there to be able to get and become successful in the future as well. So I would say an experience-centric work model, according to me, three things. One, we develop technology in the service of humans, not just, the sake of creating these technologies, but that makes our work easier, simpler, and helps us focus on key things. Second, we need to expand our concept of workplaces to include all the physical, digital workspaces, and where, we are nurturing employees to contribute collaboratively, be their authentic self. So that's the second part. And the third part is all the culture, which puts people at the heart. And we, the people, the employees, have a sense of belonging, have a sense of, we need to have a growth mindset to be able to prosper in the future.
So Nishith, I have a last question for you. You've been talking about organizational growth mindset, and for individuals, it's a nonlinear path, but also developing future-proof skills and traits. For you personally, what are your practices to make sure that you don't fall into like a fixed mindset, and what type of habits or routines do you kind of integrate into your own life to make sure you're always fresh, and to make at the same time looking to kind of preparing yourself for what may come unexpectedly in the future?
Sure. So I think this is a great question. Personally, for me, this has been the most challenging aspect. I have been a management consultant all through my life. I have been giving, pieces of advice and yarn to people, left, right, and center. You are almost tend to believe that you are Mr. Know-it-all. But the reality is there is so much of, things in the world that you don't know. And as a person that you have to grow. And this realization came about not just working at ServiceNow, but also I have two young kids who ask so many questions to me. And sometimes I realize, sometimes I get frustrated, let me be honest. Sometimes I realize that, the way the children learn is by asking a right set of questions. And then I think that curious and inquisitive mindset is something that we all have to develop. Second is, again, going back to the examples of children. I have a 1-year-old daughter who is learning to walk, and she falls down like, at least 50 times a day, but then she starts falling and tries to walk up again. And this is what we as adults have to do. It's okay to fall. People will see you falling, but it doesn't mean that you have failed, right? But you should not stop trying. I think that's the second key thing. And the third, I think, goes back to the way that I am working at my workplace. And three things that I tend to do is, one, I keep pushing the boundaries about, reinventing the concepts of hiring, onboarding, promoting. Very fixed mindset of, we like people like us. We hire people like us, and we promote people like us. That has to change, right? We need to be providing people within the organization the avenues to try out new functions, new parts of the organization. And this will mean that we will fail for sure. But how can the organization create this psychological net of safety that people don't fear failure, right? Any risk not taken means that you haven't kind of been able to tap into an opportunity. So how do we create that risk taking mentality in the organizations to innovate and to internally cannibalize rather than an external disruptor coming in? So that's the second step. And the third step is, we need to foster collaboration to learn and achieve together. It goes back to, the example that I was talking about Microsoft, Satya Nadella before he came, it was a stack ranking. G used to do a stack ranking where the bottom 10% were always yanked off and they didn't have the opportunity to be in the organization. Satya said that, there are three parts of this organization meritocracy that is there. One is, what you are doing. Second, how your work is impacting others. And third is how much of others' work you are using in your work. And if you think about it, that means that it is not, a zero-sum game. It is a win-all. Because if no one uses your work or you don't use anyone else and leverage anyone else's work, you're not successful at what. I think these are some of the things that I'm trying on my own.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, thinking about right now, I think I mentioned last time, I am actually learning kickboxing. And right now I'm at a stage, I just want to quit. Once you get a punch to the face when you're sparring, it's just like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? But when you're thinking about, when you're talking about your kid, just falling off every time, it's just, it's just what they do. It's just that they're naturally want to go forward, right? And I think that's just a really important lesson that we can learn from our young people. Nishith, do you have time for one more question? Sasha has just a last question. Would that be okay? Sasha, do you want to ask your last question and then this will be the last one?
Sure. I promise I'm not normally this active, but I don't want Nishith to have an easy ride. So I guess I'll make the question pretty simple. So if we take the airline industry as a really good example of this, there were lots of very quick business decisions made around employees and reducing headcount. How do you think, from an employer brand perspective and also a customer brand perspective, organizations in the airline industry bounce back from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish I had answers. I would have given my advice to all the airline CEOs in the world and just made money on that. But I think it goes back to the fundamental principles, right? I think there are two ways to look at this crisis in front of us. Either we say that we cut cost and slash to the bare minimum that is required to working right now, which is one of the approaches. Institutional investors will go down that route because it helps saves cost. But I think given the Harvard research, what Nitin Noria and others had done in the crisis way back in 2008, they mentioned how different type of organizations react to crisis and what type of cost should be trimmed down, right? And they said that the two things that we should never be thinking about cutting so drastically is all the investments around R&D and innovation and the key kind of, customer facing parts of the business. We have to protect it, even if it means that we have to kind of, pay extra. But think about it. Last decade has been an era of supernatural profits for companies. And what companies have done is they have reinvested back into buying back of shares, of proving dividends, thinking about the stakeholders. I think it is the time to get to employee first, right? What we are doing essentially, and we say that, oh, we are a family, all the employees, but I think this is a real thing for companies to do. Employees are not that short-sighted. Like, people will remember who did what in the last crisis, and that stays along as memory. I think it is easier said than done, but we have to take a view of, even if you take a view of the P&L, there are some discretionary costs, right? And there are certain costs which are there for the longer run that we need to be protecting. Second, I think what people think and do is that, it is us versus the rest of the ecosystem. when we think about a platform, we start thinking about, okay, why people started to kind of, sell meals. Like Singapore has SATs, and then similarly others have their own in-flight menu providers. What they're thinking is, okay, can I extract a little bit more monetary value by doing things that I had been focusing before? So Singapore Airlines with SATs and having delivery of the meals, or with Chris Shop, they are doing things around partnering with their duty-free provider, which is Lotte now. They are and with iShop Changi, they are trying to kind of reach out directly to the end customers to have additional sources of revenue. Even Grab, they are trying to have their drivers delivering groceries, because the last thing that you were seeing is there were not many delivery folks available in there. So people, I think we have to be a little bit more creative rather than stating knee-jerk and being very nationalistic. I think the other trend that I'm seeing is every company, whichever country that they are operating in, they are favoring the locals and the nationals. And I think this is all going 2 steps behind in the era where we are all interconnected. I think COVID has shown that how a problem in one place, it's a butterfly effect. It just spreads all over the world. So we have to act in unison is what I would say. I can't answer this more, I think better than this, because I think it is very, very nuanced, but I'm happy to kind of, take it offline as well.
Yeah, Nishith, I learned so much after speaking with you. Thank you so much for being so generous with your not only your time, but with your insights and your thoughts. So we have to close. We need to let Nishith go. But before that, just some really quick announcements. Have The Age of Empathy, How to Develop Future-Ready Citizens, with a co-author, Claudine Fernandez, who is the founder of the Artistic Strategies Academy. It's going to be next week on Thursday at 11 a.m. The registration link is in the post-webinar survey. And can we go to the next slide? Just in case you are interested in any programs that our center offers on adaptive leadership, on futures thinking, professional thinking, strategic foresight, power and influence, persuasion, also negotiation, please do reach out to us, contact us directly. These are available in person and online. And then next, for online purchase, of course, the Rethinking Asia 7, The Future of Work, How to Prepare for It, which Nishith is one of the authors, is available, as well as the whole Rethinking Asia series and the Asia Leadership Institute series at asialeadership.org/publication. And the next slide. And also our Asia Leadership Forum online is going to be this November. We will have over 10 speakers from Harvard and other world leading institutions on the topics of adaptive leadership, futures thinking, on resilience, as well as strategic communication and innovation. Please do register at alf.asialeadership.org. It's a 40% early bird discount until only this month, so please do take advantage. It's a week-long conference, and these are some of the details of the basic pass and the premium pass. And then please connect with us. So Nishith Jain, he's generous to put his email here. He as mentioned, he's part of the organization ServiceNow. If you are interested to learn about their work, they're also at servicenow.com. You can also find him at LinkedIn, as well as our information as well as Center for Asia Leadership. Please visit our website if you want to learn more about us. Please follow us on our social media platforms. You may also follow me as well. So Nishith, thank you so much. So wherever you guys are, if you're on the other side of the world or on this side of the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and just have a good rest of your day or your evening. Please do fight the good fight of making our organizations and our communities better. That's what we're really here for, and as well as our families and ourselves. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Nishith, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.